The first time I stepped into that quiet little house, I thought I was just helping my best friend compare kitchen cabinets and backyard space. 10 minutes later, I was standing frozen in the middle of the living room while she smiled at the realtor and calmly introduced me as the man she loved. My heart stopped before my mind could even catch up. Have you ever had someone change your entire future with a single sentence you never saw coming? If life suddenly placed you inside a moment that made no sense yet somehow felt exactly where you belonged, would you run from it, or would you stay long enough to discover the truth hiding beneath it? My name is Nathan, and for almost 15 years my closest friend had been Rachel. We met during our freshman year at a community college in Ohio after both of us struggled through difficult family situations. My father had passed away unexpectedly, leaving my mother to raise 3 children while working endless shifts at a nursing home. Rachel had grown up moving between foster families before finally being adopted by an older couple who loved her deeply but passed away within a few years of each other. Pain introduced us long before happiness ever found us. We became each other's safe place, celebrating birthdays together because neither of us had many relatives nearby and comforting one another whenever life seemed determined to knock us back down. People constantly assumed we were dating, but we always laughed it off. Our friendship was simple, dependable, and honest. Rachel dated other men over the years, and I had a few relationships that never survived more than several months. Somehow, no matter what happened, we always found ourselves sharing coffee every Saturday morning, talking about dreams that felt increasingly impossible. She wanted a home where children would laugh through the hallways because silence reminded her too much of loneliness. I wanted stability after spending years renting tiny apartments that never truly felt like home. We encouraged each other without realizing we were quietly describing the same future. One Saturday, Rachel called and asked if I wanted to visit an open house outside Columbus. She explained that she enjoyed looking at homes even though she wasn't planning to buy one. It sounded harmless, and I agreed without giving it much thought. The neighborhood was peaceful, lined with maple trees whose leaves danced gently in the summer breeze. Children rode bicycles without fear while neighbors waved from their porches. It looked like the kind of place where people still remembered birthdays and brought soup when someone got sick. The house itself wasn't luxurious. It had faded white siding, hardwood floors with tiny scratches, and an old fireplace that probably hadn't been used in years. But there was warmth inside those walls that expensive houses often lacked. Sunlight filled every room, and the backyard held a massive oak tree with a wooden swing hanging from one sturdy branch. I found myself imagining weekend barbecues, Christmas decorations, and quiet evenings sitting on the porch listening to the wind. For the first time in years, I accidentally pictured a future instead of merely surviving another month. As we walked through the dining room, the realtor smiled warmly and asked whether we had been searching long for our first home together. Before I could politely explain the misunderstanding, Rachel answered with complete confidence, telling the woman that her boyfriend and she absolutely loved the house. Time seemed to stop. I looked toward Rachel, expecting her to laugh and admit it was a harmless joke, but she simply continued smiling while studying my stunned expression. The realtor congratulated us, spoke excitedly about mortgage possibilities, and walked toward the kitchen to gather brochures, leaving us standing alone in overwhelming silence. My emotions tangled together so tightly I couldn't separate confusion from hope. Rachel slowly admitted she hadn't planned the sentence weeks earlier. She said the words simply escaped because, while walking through every room beside me, she realized I was already the person she imagined in every corner of that house. She confessed she had spent years pushing those feelings aside because our friendship meant too much to risk. Watching me admire the backyard swing had suddenly made her understand she wasn't dreaming about a house. She was dreaming about building a life with the only person who had never abandoned her. I couldn't answer immediately because I was terrified. Losing her friendship felt unimaginable. Loving her felt even more frightening because it meant risking the one relationship that had carried me through my darkest years. We left the house quietly and drove to a nearby park overlooking a small lake. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, I admitted that every serious relationship I'd ever had quietly failed because, deep inside, I measured everyone against Rachel without realizing it. She had become my definition of loyalty, compassion, and home long before I ever recognized my own heart. Our journey wasn't magically easy after that afternoon. Friends questioned whether we were confusing comfort with love. Some relatives warned us that dating a lifelong friend often ended in disaster. We even argued more during those first months than we had in 15 years because honesty exposed fears we had always hidden. Rachel feared I would eventually regret choosing someone with such a painful past. I feared failing to give her the secure family she deserved. Instead of pretending those fears didn't exist, we faced each one together, learning that love isn't built by perfect people but by imperfect people who refuse to walk away when life becomes difficult. Nearly a year later, another open house appeared online. Surprisingly, it was the same little white home. The previous sale had fallen through. We smiled at each other without saying much because it felt as though life itself was quietly offering a second chance. This time, we entered holding hands. There were no misunderstandings, no accidental confessions, and no hidden emotions. We purchased that modest house after months of saving every possible dollar. It wasn't just a financial milestone. It became proof that patience sometimes brings blessings we never dared to expect. Years have passed since that unforgettable afternoon. The scratches remain on the hardwood floors, but now they're joined by tiny footprints from two adopted children who fill every hallway with laughter Rachel once believed she would never hear. The old oak tree still stands proudly in the backyard, and every evening I watch our children race toward the swing while Rachel smiles from the porch with grateful eyes that no longer carry the same loneliness I met all those years ago. Whenever neighbors ask how we met, we simply smile because the real beginning of our love story wasn't our first date. It was one unexpected sentence spoken inside an ordinary open house that transformed two broken lives into one hopeful future. Before you go, tell us in the comments, have you ever realized that someone you considered only a friend was actually the person your heart had been waiting for all along? Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with fireworks but with quiet friendship, unexpected courage, and one life-changing moment that asks us to trust hope instead of fear. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can experience stories that remind us kindness, second chances, and love are still worth believing in.